The silver moonlight cast eerie shadows across the crystalline walls of the royal chambers, where Queen Zara of the luminary people paced restlessly, her long, iridescent skin glimmering with each movement. The memory of that day haunted her still. 3 lunar cycles had passed since the diplomatic mission from Earth had arrived on her world, bringing with them promises of alliance and technological exchange. She had been skeptical at first. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as unpredictable, creatures capable of both remarkable compassion and terrifying violence. Among the delegation was Kyle Anderson, a quiet, unassuming diplomat, with kind eyes and a smile that seemed to warm even the coldest corners of her ancient heart. She had not expected to find any human interesting, let alone captivating. Zara stopped at the large viewing panel that overlooked the vast capital city below, her 4 hearts beating in an irregular pattern whenever she thought of him. The royal advisor, Alani, entered the chamber with a bow, her voice soft yet urgent. "My queen, the human delegation requests an audience. They wish to discuss the terms of our alliance before departing tomorrow. Tell them I will meet with them shortly." Zara replied, her voice carrying the melodic tones typical of her species but heavy with something unfamiliar emotions. She had not intended to grow fond of the humans, especially not Kyle. His species was so fragile, so temporary with their brief lifespans, yet he possessed a wisdom that belied his youth. The meeting chamber was adorned with bioluminescent flora native to her homeworld, casting a soft blue glow across the gathered diplomats. The human delegation stood as she entered, their formal attire a stark contrast to the flowing garments worn by her people. Ambassador Olivia Martinez stepped forward, her posture perfect, her expression professional. "Queen Zara, we thank you for your hospitality. These past weeks we believe our peoples have much to offer one another." Zara nodded gracefully, her attention drifting to Kyle, who stood slightly behind the ambassador, his gaze meeting hers briefly before looking away. She felt a flutter in her secondary heart, something no human had ever elicited before. The discussions proceeded smoothly until alarms suddenly blared throughout the palace. Security forces rushed into the chamber. Weapons drawn, rebel forces have breached the palace defenses. Captain Mira announced, her voice tense. "They seek to assassinate you. My queen and the human delegates, we must evacuate immediately." Chaos erupted as palace guards surrounded the queen and the human diplomats, ushering them through hidden passages designed for such emergencies. The sound of energy weapons echoed through the corridors, growing closer with each passing moment. "We must reach the secure bunker beneath the crystal falls," Zara instructed, leading the frightened humans through a labyrinth of passageways known only to the royal family and their most trusted advisors. They had nearly reached the sanctuary when a squadron of rebels cut off their escape. Kyle moved before anyone could react, positioning himself between the queen and the approaching threat. Ambassador Martinez, "You need to get everyone to safety," Kyle said, calmly, his eyes never leaving the advancing rebels. "I know another way, but what about you?" Olivia asked, confusion clear on her face. "Someone needs to hold them off." Kyle replied, his voice steady, despite the danger. "Just promise me you will complete the alliance." Before anyone could argue, he pushed the delegation toward an alternate passage, then turned to face the rebels alone. Zara watched in horror as Kyle engaged the security protocols, sealing himself on the opposite side of the barrier with the approaching threat. "No," she cried out, pressing her hands against the transparent wall. "What are you doing, buying you time?" Kyle answered, a sad smile crossing his features. "My queen, the alliance between our peoples is too important to fail." The rebels surrounded him, weapons trained on his fragile human form. Yet he stood tall, unafraid. Zara could only watch helplessly as Kyle activated a device on his wrist, a small but powerful electromagnetic pulse that disabled the rebels' weapons and communication devices. The blast knocked them unconscious but also sent dangerous feedback through his device, severely injuring him. When palace forces finally secured the area and the barrier was lifted, Zara rushed to Kyle's side, cradling his broken body against her. The medical team worked tirelessly to stabilize him. But human physiology was complex and delicate. Now, weeks later, Kyle remained in a healing stasis. His sacrifice had not only saved her life but cemented the alliance between their worlds. The humans hailed him as a hero, while her people viewed his actions with newfound respect for his species. Zara entered the medical chamber where Kyle floated in a regeneration pod, his body slowly healing beneath the pale blue light. The royal physician, Neri, approached her, expression cautious. "He improves daily, my queen, but human biology responds differently to our treatments. We cannot predict when he will leave us." Zara commanded, waiting until she was alone before placing her hand against the cool surface of the pod. She had reviewed the ancient laws of her people, discovering a rarely invoked statute that would allow her to claim the human as her consort. Should he consent, such a union had not occurred in thousands of years. But there was no explicit prohibition. "You foolish, brave human," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Why would you risk everything for someone you barely know?" The diplomatic corps was in turmoil over her declared intentions. Some advisors argued that taking a human consort would weaken her position, while others suggested it might strengthen the alliance, permanently binding their worlds together. Ambassador Martinez had been surprisingly supportive once the initial shock wore off. "Kyle has always been drawn to your culture, Queen Zara. She had explained during a private audience. More than any other diplomat, he studied your history, your customs, your beliefs. Perhaps on some level, he always belonged here. Belonging here was one thing, becoming Lifepartner to the Queen was quite another." Olivia had reminded her that on Earth the concept of consent was paramount. Kyle would need to choose this path freely. The Royal Council was less understanding. Councillor Vex had been particularly vocal in his opposition. "Humans live merely a fraction of our lifespan. My queen," he had argued, "would you subject yourself to watching your chosen one wither and die while you remain?" Zara had silenced his protests with a single look. "I have consulted with our geneticists," she stated. "Our sciences can extend his life significantly if he chooses, and that choice will be his alone." Now standing before the healing pod, she wondered if she was being selfish. Perhaps Kyle would prefer to return to Earth, to his own kind, his own world. A subtle change in the healing pod's readouts drew her attention. Kyle's brainwaves had shifted, becoming more active. His fingers twitched slightly within the healing gel. Neri rushed into the chamber, reading the monitors with expert eyes. "He wakes my queen far sooner than expected. His resilience is remarkable." Zara felt her heart's racing as the pod began its awakening sequence, draining the healing gel and slowly raising Kyle to a seated position. His eyes fluttered open, disoriented at first, then focusing on her face. Recognition dawning, followed by confusion. "Queen Zara," he whispered, his voice hoarse from disuse. "What happened? You saved my life," she answered simply. "And perhaps our alliance as well." Kyle attempted to stand, but his legs, weak from weeks of inactivity, buckled beneath him. Zara caught him effortlessly, her superior strength supporting his weight until he found his balance. "The rebels," he asked, captured and awaiting judgment. Zara assured him, "The plot has been exposed, their conspiracy unraveled." He nodded, relief evident in his expression. "Ambassador Martinez, the others, all safe, Kyle, thanks to your actions?" She paused, searching for the right words. "Your bravery has earned you great honor among my people." Kyle smiled, that same warm smile that had first captured her attention. "I was just doing my job." "No," Zara corrected him. "You went far beyond duty. You risked everything. For people not your own, such sacrifice is rare, even among the longest-lived species." She helped him to a sitting area where he carefully lowered himself onto a cushioned bench, his movements still stiff and uncertain. "There is something I wish to discuss with you, Kyle, something of great importance," Zara began. "I wanted to talk to you too, actually." Kyle interrupted, his expression serious. "Before I lost consciousness, I experienced something strange, a connection to you that I cannot explain. I saw flashes of your memories, your thoughts." Zara stared at him in shock. Such a connection was exceptionally rare even among her own kind. The healing process must have triggered a psychic bond between them. "What I felt," Zara whispered, her voice trembling with emotion, "suggests something my people call soul-binding, a connection that transcends physical form." Kyle reached out hesitantly, taking her hand, his 5 fingers intertwining with her 7 in Earth terms. "I believe we'd call it love." Zara felt her heart synchronize for the first Time in her long life, there were countless obstacles ahead of them, biological, political, cultural. But in that moment, looking into his eyes, she knew with absolute certainty that this human was meant to be her life partner. There are things you should know. She began. The life we would share would not be easy. There would be those who oppose us, who would seek to separate us. Kyle smiled again, squeezing her hand gently. Nothing worth having comes easily. Queen Zara me name? She corrected, just Zara when. We are alone, Zara. Kyle repeated her name like a promise. I crossed the stars to find you. I think I can handle whatever comes next, outside the medical chamber. The twin suns of her world rose above the horizon, bathing the crystalline city in golden light. A new day dawning for two beings from different worlds, bound together by sacrifice and the most unexpected of emotions. Love. As Kyle regained his strength over the following days, news of the Queen's intentions spread throughout the palace, and beyond. The human delegation extended their stay at Ambassador Martinez's insistence. The royal palace buzzed with whispers, some excited, others concerned about the unprecedented union. Many of the younger luminari supported the match, seeing it as progressive, while the elders remained skeptical. Kyle found himself subjected to countless medical examinations as the royal scientists worked to determine if his physiology could be adapted to extend his lifespan. The procedures are painless, but necessary, Dr. Neary explained as she extracted another sample of his blood. If we are to modify your cellular structure, we must understand it completely. During one such examination, Counselor Vex entered the laboratory, his tall, willowy frame rigid with disapproval. So this is the human who has enchanted our queen, he remarked, his tone making the words sound like an accusation. Kyle met his gaze steadily. I have great respect for Queen Zara and her people, Counselor. My intentions are honorable. Vex circled him, studying Kyle as one might examine an unusual specimen. How convenient that you, a diplomat trained in manipulation, should capture her attention, just as our worlds negotiate a critical alliance. Neary stepped between them, her voice firm. This is a medical facility, Counselor, not a place for political debates. Vex departed with a final warning look, but his opposition was only the beginning. Each day brought new challenges as the palace prepared for the formal announcement of the Queen's intentions. Ambassador Martinez found Kyle in the royal gardens one evening, the lush alien foliage glowing softly in the twilight. Are you certain about this path? She asked, the concern in her voice. Evident Earth will seem very far away from here. Kyle gazed up at the unfamiliar constellations visible through the transparent dome. I never felt like I belonged there. Not really. He admitted, something always seemed to be pulling me toward the stars. Now I know why. Olivia smiled sadly. Earth is losing one of its finest diplomats, but gaining its strongest alliance. Kyle countered, and perhaps something more, a bridge between our worlds that goes beyond politics. The night of the formal announcement arrived with ceremonial grandeur, befitting the ancient luminary dynasty. The great hall was filled with dignitaries from both worlds, the air tense with anticipation. Zara entered wearing traditional royal garments, her iridescent skin adorned with bioluminescent markings that signified momentous change. Kyle stood at the foot of the dais, wearing a blend of earth and luminary formal attire, a physical representation of the union. They proposed people of luminary and honored guests from Earth. Zara began, her voice carrying throughout the hall. Tonight, we stand at the threshold of a new era for both our worlds. She extended her hand, beckoning Kyle to join her upon the platform. The history of our peoples has been separate until now, but our futures, I believe, are meant to be intertwined. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as Kyle ascended the steps to stand beside her. In accordance with the ancient laws of my people, and with full recognition of the traditions of Earth, I announce my intention to take Kyle Anderson of Earth as my life partner. Zara declared, the 7 moons of our world bear witness to this bond should he accept. The hall fell silent, all eyes turning to Kyle, the human who stood before them, neither intimidated by the scrutiny nor overwhelmed by the honor. I accept, Kyle stated simply, his voice steady in the silence. A single voice cut through the moment. Counselor Vex stepping forward from the assembly, I invoke the right of challenge, he announced. This union threatens the purity of the royal lineage. Such challenges were rare, but within the rights of the High Council members. Zara faced him calmly. What form shall your challenge take, Counselor? The trial of thought and heart. Vex replied, a test to prove the human capable of truly understanding our ways. The assembled crowd murmured in surprise. The trial was ancient, rarely invoked, and demanding it would require Kyle to undergo a ritual mind melding with the Queen before the council, revealing his true intentions and the depth of their connection. Zara turned to Kyle, her expression concerned. The process is intimate, revealing he should know it would expose his every thought, his every memory to both her and the council members. Kyle straightened his shoulders, unafraid. I have nothing to hide, my queen. My heart and mind are open to you. The ritual was prepared in the sacred chamber beneath the palace, where the crystals that formed the foundation of their civilization grew ancient and powerful. The council members arranged themselves in a circle around Kyle and Zara, who knelt facing one another as the ritual began. Their minds merged, consciousness flowing between them like water. Finding its level, their shared memories, emotions, hopes, and fears laid bare before the council. To everyone's astonishment, even Vex, the connection between them blazed brighter than any in living memory. Their bond already formed during Kyle's healing, transcending physical form to create something entirely new. A perfect union of two vastly different beings. When the ritual concluded, Vex bowed deeply to both Zara and Kyle. I withdraw my challenge, he stated formally. There can be no doubt of the truth of this bond. 3 days later, beneath the light of all 7 moons, Kyle and Zara were joined in a ceremony that combined traditions from both worlds, beginning a new chapter, not just for themselves but for both their peoples, a bridge across the stars built on sacrifice, understanding, and love.